I think you could sum up the biggest refrain of the left, which is really just the far left in 2019 in the West, as we know. The biggest refrain that sums them up is we get to fairness through unfairness. Whether this is affirmative action, systematically discriminating against white people in favour of black people because of historical oppression. Whether you think affirmative action is fair, whether you think it's good or not, I think it's bad. I think affirmative action should just focus on poor people, not be race-based. Whether you think it's good or not, though, you can't really argue. Affirmative action is unfair on white people, and it's attempting to get to some definition of fairness by being unfair. It's the same as diversity quotas. It's the same as the just unbelievable Swedish law that says 50% of board members of companies have to be women. Are you fucking serious? Women don't want to do that work as much as men. You're distorting a free market. What a law like that should say, what any law should prioritise, is a meritocracy. If you had a law that said, you should... Well, I don't think you really need laws for this, but if you were going to have a law, it should be along the lines of, you have to choose the best person for the job. Your board should be made up of the best people for the job, and if you don't choose the best person, but you discriminate based on gender, that's a problem. I don't think you need a law for that, because the biggest miracle that humans have ever created, the free market, systematically, automatically, and continually punishes any behaviour that a company makes that doesn't lead to profitability. So if you have a racist hiring policy, regardless of who it's racist against, the free market corrects that. Why? Well, let's say you only hire white men, you don't hire black women. What effect does that have on the market? Well, there's black women available that could do that job for the market rate, but you keep hiring white men. Well, this is going to push the wages of white men up because they're in more demand, and the wages of black women down. So eventually you get to the point where your competitors can employ black women for a lower price. What does that mean? Well, they get the same output for less money, which means they can beat you in the marketplace by selling products lower. What does that mean? It means the racist company goes out of business. Or you have to start employing black women. So, the free market corrects any discrimination that doesn't prioritise profitability for the company. It's amazing, and almost nobody discusses this or thinks about it. But is getting to fairness through unfairness, is this a good strategy? What if it works? Well, the problem is there are so many unintended consequences here. If you start systematically discriminating against white men, which society is doing now pretty much everywhere, and certainly at universities in the US are systematically discriminating against East Asians because they do too well, and in favour of blacks because they don't do well enough, quote unquote. You get all sorts of backlashes and all sorts of unintended consequences. And I think in pretty much any situation, things just get worse. If rather than trying to get to fairness through just enforcing fairness, if rather than doing that, which I think is the obvious thing to do and the right thing to do, if rather than doing that, you try to get through fairness through unfairness, all sorts of problems come up. For example, you over-promote black students to better universities than their intelligence allows or than their grades allow. What happens to that's good, that equalises society. Well, no, it doesn't. These black students end up underachieving at the university because they're not intelligent enough to go to that university. So black students end up routinely being in the bottom 10% of top universities. Well, if you're talking about stereotypes, what kind of stereotypes is that going to set up? And they're much more likely to drop out, which means fewer black students get a degree. Okay, unintended consequences. Forcing women to be on 50% of board seats. Well, you're going to get women are just less likely to want to be on board seats because they're much more likely to stay at home and look after kids, given a free choice, because that's what they want to do. So you get less capable women on board seats, or you get men who want to be on boards who aren't. This is going to damage the economy. What's the point in this? Where are we trying to go? you have to also differentiate between equality of outcome and equality of opportunity. What we must have is equality of opportunity, but 50% women on board seats is equality of outcome. Equality of outcome is hell. And, well, why wouldn't there be 50-50 board seats and 50-50 in all jobs? Well, men and women are biologically different. The science is in. We make different choices because of our innate biological differences. Sure, nurture comes into it, but there are innate biological differences. It's proved in psychology, and it's natural that jobs would have a gender imbalance. So the problem with trying to get to fairness through unfairness is, how do you know what fairness is as a destination? That's extremely hard to know what the outcome will be. It's much easier to enforce getting to fairness through fairness. It's much easier to enforce getting to fairness through equality of opportunity, of saying, women, if you do the work, the same work as men, if you do the work men who get on company boards do, and there's a fair selection process, and you have an equal chance of getting there. That's getting to fairness through fairness. And that doesn't assume that you know what the outcome should be. And that's the key problem with getting to fairness through unfairness. Getting to no discrimination through discrimination. Destroying discrimination through discrimination. It's like something out of 1984. Not only is it does it have all sorts of unintended consequences, it can't work. It doesn't work because you don't know where you're going. And that's the problem with where the left is today. It's hit on this idea of getting to fairness through unfairness. It's deeply flawed, and it's going to be counterproductive. It's not going to get the left where it wants to go. It's going to send us backwards, and it's going to lead to all sorts of resentments and unintended consequences. The left needs a course correction. The left needs to embrace the meritocracy. It can embrace extreme meritocracy. I would probably agree with that, depending on the details of it. But it's badly off course, and I don't think it's really going where it wants to go. I think both the right and the left think they're on a path to fairness. It just depends on your definition. And up until 10, 20 years ago, I think the left had a pretty good definition of fairness. And I think it's gone off course now, because it's embraced getting to fairness through unfairness. And that's just not workable. It's not sustainable. The Deviant Developer Podcast. Tap subscribe in any podcast app to never miss an episode. Please leave a review on iTunes and like on YouTube. It's essential to spread the word. To contact me or make a welcome donation, go to thedeviantdeveloper.com. Your support is greatly appreciated.